evening and welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Tonight we have bassist Tanya O'Callaghan. Tanya does a lot of other things, but we're going to start with her music playing first. How are you doing,
Tanya? Very well, having my third coffee of the day, my one little addiction.
It's a lot of coffee. So,
well, they're small in my defense.
You are originally from Ireland and now you're transplanted over to the States, but you're usually on tour. You play all the time.
Absolutely, I guess a resident of planet Earth. But yeah, originally from a small town in Ireland called Mullingar, and then I toured all over the world with a couple of different tours before I jumped ship and decided to move to the US because the saturation of the music industry in LA just seemed like a really good idea. So I've been in the States for about 7 years now, and it's been a trip.
You must get homesick though, I can imagine that.
Especially now because I can't go home because of the current situation in the world, because I can't re-enter if I leave. So it's actually been really tough. So I'm really grateful that I've been busier than ever during this whole crazy, time we're going through in history, because it's keeping me sane. But yeah, homesick is a real thing, but we have to count our blessings. Luckily
how are you kind of keeping busy though? Like, because you were a big at touring, speaking engagements, everything you did was moving.
Yeah, true. So, touring started coming back a little bit over the past couple of months, but because I produce and run multiple other projects, so we have Highway to Health. So we actually spent, we had just filmed season 1 of that show that I work on with Derek from Sepultura. So we edited for months and months immediately off the bat. And I'm doing a lot of the music for the shows I'm involved with. I started another documentary as well. And a lot of the speaking stuff and the health stuff just switched to online. And a lot of studio sessions. So actually I was very ironic. I was kind of the first month or so when this all hit, I was at that stage really in need of some time off the road, because I don't think I'd been off the road for 6 years. I was just on tour for 6 straight years. It was insane. So I was really grateful for the first month was relatively calm. And then I kind of looked and went, okay, this is going to go on for a while. It's pretty obvious. So here's my strategy, and just let's use this time. So it's been actually a really productive year and a half. So, I'm involved in a lot of different projects for anyone that follows me. So it wasn't once touring was taken away, I didn't work. It was just everything else just kicked up to, 10th gear.
Well, you being a worker of so much, you're always working with different bands. You've been up to 7 bands at a time. You just don't stop. So you're always looking and following leads. So being diversified has probably always worked for you up till now, with just building your foundation of who you are and your reputation as a player. You're a fantastic player. But to that point, that being so diversified probably also helped you, or a lot of other musicians were kind of really in a weird spot when COVID hit, because you were so used to moving like water, just block over here,
Yeah.
You mentioned your highway. Now, was it Highway to Health? Sorry.
Yeah, Highway to Health.
Could you explain that more? Because people, I'm aware of what it is, but could you explain it probably much more detailed?
Yeah. So this is my passion project, absolute dream project that started a couple of years ago, just an idea on paper that was actually going to be a documentary. Because I've been, long before I was a bass player, I was a very active activist in the environmental space and animal rights and all that. And something I'm really passionate about and I speak about all the time is the power of the consumer across the board in everything we do. We vote with our wallets every day. So I was kind of developing this concept that was going to be a documentary, but then Derek Green, the singer of Sepultura, who's a long-term friend as well, he is also a lifelong advocate and activist. And we were actually on a layover in Dublin together. Sepultura were playing in Dublin, and I was on a layover with Dee Snider heading to Europe. And we were just catching up in Dublin, and we were sharing each other's ideas. And it turned out that we had such a similar idea. He wanted to do kind of this plant-based eco show that he would host, and I was doing it in the same thing in a documentary. I'm like, dude, let's join forces. This would be way more powerful if we just do it together. So that idea was born about 2.5, 3 years ago in Dublin. And my 2 best friends in Ireland are a production company. So we decided let's shoot a trailer, let's get this concept down. And then it just I went nuts, and because I'm very involved in the plant-based business world and all that. So I went around to all the conferences and I kind of gathered the right contacts for it. And I was like, right, let's get season 1 underway. So we actually filmed an entire season just before COVID hit. So what we did was I looked at my tour schedule. I was with I think I was finishing up, I was maybe still with Dee Snider at the end, and I was out with Stephen Adler as well. And then we took Derek's Sepultura touring schedule, and we were like, okay, here are the gaps. Let's meet in Brazil. Let's meet in Mexico. Let's meet. And we filmed 7 or 8 episodes all over the world. So it was pretty amazing. So it's like a plant-based rock and roll environmental show that's got a lot of cool guests on it, a lot of fun celebrity guests and stuff.
It looks good. I saw the preview. Yeah. All the links will be under below. People can go to that page too and just check it out. It's so really
fun.
Good.
So fun because it's my dream project. It's like music, activism, travel, food, the environment, everything in like one passion project. So we're really excited about that.
I think having Derek in it's great because I don't usually see him in something like that. So seeing his personality and you guys work together well, at least in the clip I saw. So it looks like you guys have great synergy.
Oh yeah, super fun.
That really kind of helps the show move along too. And it looks like it's shot well.
It was a big undertaking. It's like the biggest project I've ever, organized, and it was insane. But years of tour managing came in handy. So I was like, oh, I remember how to be a tour manager and organize all this stuff.
How's it going to come out? Is it going to be like on TV or a paid channel?
Hopefully. So this is the part where we have it up to a certain point with editing, and then you get an agent and it goes to market. So this is like more painstaking than the music industry. We're laughing about it every day. This is like the hurdle to get it there. So it's going to market. That's kind of like the phase it's in. So they shop it, and then we're like all fingers and toes crossed. We'll have an announcement in not too long, like where it can be viewed. But yeah, we'll get it out there in the world one way or another, because it's really, really high end, and it's got a lot of great guests, and it's just super, super fun. The only shitty thing is, just as the pandemic happened, we actually we were in New York and we were going to shoot with Gojira and like John Joseph and have this it's like the one thing we didn't get to capture, but we'll get back.
Season 2, right? You got to start back into it. Well, that's the thing. How are you coordinating? So this is a good example. You have to coordinate this in the show, in his tour, but like you play, and you just said you play with Dee Snider. You've been playing with Dee for quite a while now, right?
I played with Dee for 2.5 years, and I did one of his records. Yeah, I'm not currently with Dee. I'm a freelancer.
But at one point, you were with him for a while, but you were doing other gigs too.
Yeah.
How does that overlap with like scheduling and stuff without being like, hey, Dee is the boss. Like, hey, boss, I know we had this night off, but they just added a date to that thing, but I have plans that date. Like,
yeah. It's sorry, I'm just turning my phone off because it's beeping. It is sometimes like you're just crossing your fingers and toes because, well, usually I wouldn't like double book. Obviously, you're being a super professional, but I've been really kind of lucky at the synchronicity of everything over the past 5-6 years. Like when I started with Dee, for instance, I was still touring with a pop R&B artist called Jordan Fisher. And it was weird how this stuff just aligned. Like I remember doing a show, we were playing a festival in Chicago with Dee, I think it was Riot Fest. And I came off stage, I think we headlined that night. And so it was late, it was like, 11, 12, came off stage with Dee, went to the airport, flew to London. The time zone goes forward, get off the flight in London, get on stage with Jordan Fisher. So it just ran like that. I would never unprofessionally like double book, but that just worked for a little while. But usually when you're kind of, I was coming out of, like, Jordan was finishing up with that lineup and he was going to go do Broadway anyway. So it was like, okay, it's okay to take on another gig. And then, I took on the Dee Snider gig, and that was 2 solid years of just Dee, really. And then right as Dee was kind of winding down and taking a break to do a different type of record, Stephen was going out and they needed someone to fill in, and and then that turned into 2 years of that. So it was it was crazy. It's like I was on a podcast the other day with a bass player friend of mine who actually subs for me when I can't do stuff, and we were laughing because I've ended up where I was supposed to only fill in for 1 gig with artists and then stay with them for 2 years. So yeah, I think, and a lot of it, and I'm fiercely organized as well. I have super OCD about organization, so it's like, I will definitely be really pro with that and making sure that, as well, the other stuff I do, I'll work it around touring. So if I'm going to be in Europe and I have a few days off, I'll also set up that I'm doing some like health thing or speaking thing or clinic or whatever. I just can't stop. I mean, it's not that that's good or bad, but
yeah, really. Do you ever sleep? Listen to you. It's awesome, the stuff you do. Wow.
I mean, I wish I slept more, but yeah, there is that thing as well of maybe I should just completely stop for like even a week and just see what happens.
You take a break and just go out in the desert and just
Well,
read a
I
book and
moved
be
to the
quiet?
desert. Funny that, well, I'm a book hoarder. I love reading. They're everywhere. There's stacks of them everywhere in my house. But funny enough, I actually moved to the desert mid-pandemic because I wanted out of that city energy, and everything was so politicized between people. So I was like, I'm going to go
Yeah.
to Joshua Tree. So I moved out to the desert.
Wow, very nice.
Amazing.
It was, well, it's amazing. So with all this playing and time, are you still like practicing how you're like you're playing and you're writing and you're recording, but are you still practicing or playing for fun or creating? You know what I'm saying? That same
Yeah.
energy before it becomes just a chore.
Yeah, no, well, that's the thing. I talk about this all the time. And I'm very honest about this. That is one of the things I find, not for every player, but a lot of players definitely I've spoke to, where when music becomes your job, it does take some of the joy out of it.
Mhm.
It's not that I don't obviously still, I love performing. Like I love touring and performing. But for the first half of it, I barely played because I was so busy. And then, you
Yeah.
guilt trip yourself. You're like, I gotta play. But then I would get, a call that I had to learn a set for studio in 48 hours, and so it's work again. So there's definitely a push pull mentally with keeping music joyful, when it becomes your job. And I did a lot of sessions through it, which were enjoyable because I was actually writing a lot of the music for the show. But now I'm starting to get back to a place, like I have a couple of studio sessions coming up that are very creative, and it's fun, and it's not like time pressure. And also because I work in other stuff and I don't have to put everything in music, like paying the bills and whatnot, although it is still my primary, job. I think that there's a lot to be said about taking the pressure off music sometimes. That just happened naturally with all the other stuff that I do. So I think setting yourself up in life that you don't have to, like, 'cause it gets really stressful if you're like, oh my God, if I don't take that gig and that gig and that gig and that
Well, I
gig, I
mean, that
can't
relates to a
keep
lot
the
of
lights
people
on.
with like non-music jobs. You go to school
Yeah.
for something you like. I want to be, a doctor. I want to be this or whatever. Once you start doing it every day,
Yeah.
you're like,
No,
I hate
it's
this.
true. Like, and I'm just by nature, I am a serial entrepreneur. I'm always like, I was doing this with this little girl. Like, I'm always starting like businesses or helping or getting
You're like a
involved in
lemonade
like.
stand or something, or
Oh yeah,
Ireland, like
yeah.
a little Guinness stand, and
Yeah, but for me as well, my whole mission in life is tied to a cause. So music serves as a platform for me as well. It's not like I'm a bass player, modest. I like to be, we're okay with being in the background. We're not like the lead singer, lead guitarist syndrome.
I know, but you're not really
Like,
a background bass player.
I mean, I
You really
can
stand out.
be.
You
I
might
can.
feel like
That's
you're in the background
that's.
because you play with artists like Dee Snider and stuff. Everyone's in the
No,
background. Dee's
actually,
around.
I ironically though, it was Dee that pushed me to be more. I'll never forget it because as a session player, quite often you're expected to kind of be wallpaper, as a lot will refer to it. So a lot of,
Right.
like, when I was out with the Riverdance and different pop gigs in Europe before I moved to the US, you are actually hired to just be.
Right.
Yes, they might be like, oh, your look is cool or whatever, but you're not there to. You have to understand you're being hired, obviously for the music and to be part of this background aesthetic. When I got to D was like, try to outstage me. He wanted us to go nuts. So he really let me go back into performance fun, because before that there was a lot of gigs where they're like, this is your stage area, don't move out of this. I always actually joke with Rudy Sarzo about that because he had to do that for a while and it
Yes,
was
he did.
Whitesnake. Just
Yeah.
like, this is
Little
your square. I'm like, how can you put Rudy Sarzo in a square? He's fucking Rudy Sarzo. So we always joke about that, but there was a lot of that. And then Dee really let me go back into performance mode. So yeah, and shake off the cobwebs of being in the background. But yeah, performance is fun with the likes of Dee because you can really. And I'm a very physical player with hits and stabs and how I play. It's kind of like once I'm on stage, it's like, where's the bass and where does she begin and end? Because I'm very physical with, like, when there's hits and stops and whatnot. It's just how I play. So I can't really stand there being all proper in the
Well,
background.
that's what I'm saying. Because you play for the artists, playing for the rockers, I can see you. That you play out there and watching some clips of you on YouTube and stuff. It's hard to imagine you just sitting in the background playing to the music.
I have been.
And I know you can. I'm just thinking it feels like it's hard to digest that concept, like, because you're too much of a burning star to be just in the background. Well, some people, can blend real easy. Maybe,
I could take my hair down and blend it down a bit.
I think you can be picked up easy in a lineup. I don't know. So what's great is you work with Dee, and he's a strong personality, and he's also a great advocate for other people.
Mm-hmm.
So which is very empowering for you to help you push you to be your best person. And it fits, it aligns with which your mantra, what you kind of are in all your other jobs and social stuff. So having that support has been great. And then you play with Steven Adler for a while, and then another great guy from, legend,
Legend.
Great songs and a fun lineup. He always has great musicians with him.
Absolutely. And it's, that's the fun thing, all these, I didn't grow up with, obviously I knew who, like, I'd heard of Twisted Sister songs, or I'd heard of Guns N' Roses, but we grew up with very different top 40 and different music in rural small town Ireland. Yes, we kind of heard it, but that was the cooler thing about me ending up with playing with those kind of legends of that generation. It was like new music to me. So I was like, oh, this is great.
It's great music. It's the reason why it's still playing around.
Yeah, so I wasn't sick of it at all. Like, and I didn't get sick of it, and it's fun. And then when you go out and you play, especially when you play, with Dee and you're playing We're Not Gonna Take It, or I Want to Rock, to like 60, 70, 80,000 people at a festival, and everyone's, it's just a sea of people and energy. It's like, wow, this is just gonna be priceless forever. But yeah, it's playing with these guys, and Steven's such a great guy, and great songs, great story, and there's been so many amazing people through that band as well, and that's fun as well in the session world, because we all kind of know and respect each other, and there's lots of crossover there. If someone can't do the gig or whatnot, it's a nice little circle.
How does it work for session playing though? Like, when you come in, are you given just here's the music you're going to play? Or they kind of give you a little more freedom, or does it kind of depend on the artist? Or
it depends on the artist. So, like, obviously with doing Steve in the last 2 years, that set is, if you're playing, especially the GNR stuff, on his original stuff, a little more freedom. But you can't, like, you play Duff's lines, like Duff. Right. They're, there's no way around that, and they're amazing. And that was actually, I didn't listen to GNR at all growing up. I knew who they were, and my brother was big into them. It's just, I was only working with animals. There was no music until I was 17 or 18. So I was actually training to be a vet's assistant. So that's a whole other story. But anyway, so when I came to sit down and shed that set, I had this instant appreciation for Duff's bass lines. I was like, wow, these are not just like, run of the mill root note rock and roll bass lines. These are like bass solos on every song. So I was
very interesting songwriting though. It was really very creative. That's why it blew up. That's why it's like one of the biggest albums ever. I mean,
it sticks out, right? And just to be unique and to be authentic and that was a great generation for music. Like, our industry is so different now. Yeah. It's sad, but you move with the times. But it's great, and it's great to see that it stood the test of time. The likes of Twisted and Steven and GNR and all that stuff. It's really it's powerful music.
It is. I was saying the other day to somebody, you see the rock bands are playing out from then, and no one's really feeling this can be a big grunge movement, like a big, because like when you go out, you're like, oh, it's a 50s dance. There's always been like something of a generation, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. I don't think it's going to be a big grunge resurgence. You know what I mean? The bigger ones that survived it. We're still playing it. I mean, you had your Soundgardens, your Alice in Chains.
Oh my God, the
jams. You had the bigger ones, but they were almost, at the time, they were kind of like, like a Sabbath type. You know what I'm saying? They were cutting their own swath, but the smaller bands didn't leave enough of an impact, I don't think.
Right.
To where like a lot of these rock bands, there's a lot of smaller rock bands that didn't become platinum, but really had a strong fan base because they had a lot of albums, not like one album or a radio tour or something. They had touring and really 5 years to get a deal.
Right. Yeah.
So more weight to that.
No, absolutely.
How did you change from? So let's go back to this vet thing.
You're like, wait, what?
It's so crazy, yeah. So we went from vet and working with animals to working with rockers, kind of is a good easy change, right?
There's like, after spending the past 10 or 12 years on tour buses with a bunch of dudes, there was a lot of skills I learned as a vet assistant. But I know I've toured with loads of wonderful, wonderful humans. But no, so that's the thing. Like, when I was really like the long and short of my childhood story, because it is a long one, but as soon as I was able to kind of comprehend and speak and think, freely for myself, I realized animals were in our food chain, and I didn't want to eat meat. So I became this little rebel activist at like 5. And it was ridiculous. And then at age 8, when I was in school, the teacher brought us on like a day trip to a local animal rescue shelter. And I loved it so much that I asked if I could come and volunteer. And I stayed there till I was 18. So 8 to 18, I was there every hour I could, like all weekend. I would just leave school in the evening and go there, or just leave in the middle of the day and go there. I was so obsessed. And I learned so much from it. And, it's funny because it's completely unrelated to the music industry, but just the hard work involved in working with so many animals and being involved in such highly emotional rescue cases, and learning, like, you know, they had me working in the office really young. So I learned so many skills that made life on the road seem like a breeze, really, after dealing with all of it.
I actually think everything's related. And I always like to see where the dots are connected.
Yeah, and I think it's
You know?
funny because you only, the older and wiser you get, you start to really look back and see all these like beautiful transitions in life. And you know, it's not that, oh, I stopped doing this and now I do this. You know, your work ethic is built, you know, when you're young. And I've great parents, and I come from, you know, good stock in Ireland, and good Thai family and all that stuff. But it's amazing. And then anyway, when I was 17, I picked up a bass. I went to a music course in my hometown. I actually started as a drummer, but that only lasted about 2 weeks because they didn't have a acoustic kit. They only had electric, and this was way before like Roland brought out all the great stuff. This was like the old cheap pads. I remember playing, being like, man, I want to be a drummer. And then I saw a local bass player who I knew playing bass the way I'd never heard it before. So it was very, like, he was playing all this cool melodic stuff. He was playing, I believe it was like Primus and Jacko. I was like, what is that? And I just remember being like, wow, I'm really intrigued by that instrument. And I picked it up, and the rest is history. I became so obsessed. And I was self-taught. I completely self-taught myself, and I started playing in bands immediately. And then it's funny how it all transitioned, because I didn't mean to become a professional bass player. But I just, you know, I got so involved in the industry, and then I was doing house bands for TV shows, and then I was getting hired to do pop tours, and then Maynard Keenan asked me to be a guest on his record, and then it was like America. It's kind of a blur, but it's insane. But the whole time I was still like working in this activist world, and the more my path grew in music and the bigger my platform came, I was like, well, this is actually really cool. There's like a mutual symbiosis between the whole thing. It's like the more I'm out there, the more I can, you know, speak for these causes. So
I feel a lot of musicians are for animals too, though. I mean, it's, you know, the causes.
I think artists in general just like don't want to be bystanders in you know, anything that's detrimental to human, or you know, I believe people are inherently kind. We're in a tough time in history, but I'm like, people are inherently kind. There's more good people than there are bad people. And if you have a platform, big or small, you should use it. So I think that's my purpose anyway, and I think that carries me through life. And I don't, you know, let all of the things that would usually stress the hell out of artists, because I'm like, I know why I'm doing this as an end goal. So if you know your purpose, you know, it's more powerful than just like, I want to be famous, or I want to be in this band, or I want to be in that band. It's like, that's not going to serve you. But yeah, it's been a trip, because it all kind of just happened by accident.
You're so dedicated to what you do. I don't think you do anything that's not professional. I think like literally everything you do is going to end up being professional, because you're putting the time in, you know.
Yeah, you have to. Don't do things half-assed in life.
Right. Do it whole-assed, right? Is that
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, there we go. We just made that one up. You could do it whole-assed.
No, that was actually from the TV show, Parks and Recreation. That was
I love that show.
Yeah, that was what's his face? Yeah. So don't do
I haven't watched that, and you just reminded me I need to watch that. I love that.
That was a good show.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Rhapsody.
Leadership Rhapsody, yes.
Yes, let's talk about it, please, because this is a good lead-in, because you do seem to lead in everything you do. So,
well, that's the funny. It's this bizarre thing of saying yes to new things and being open to like the unusual feedback. So that came about because I was teaching at a music camp in LA. I think this one was LA or Chicago, and there are these cool camps that happen where most of the demographic is like retired guys who wanted to be in band years ago, but they're like scientists and dentists and like corporate CEOs, really like unusual group of people. And you know, they bring in professional musicians to be mentors, to get them ready to play with big names. So at this one particular camp, I was you know, overseeing this group, getting them ready for, I think it was Nancy Wilson, or it could have been the Dave Mustaine camp, I can't remember, they were so random. And this student, he wasn't my student, but he was in another group, and he saw me play, you know, over the weekend, and him and his wife approached me and were like, we just love your story, like the fact that you know, come from small town Ireland and you're out here, and it's kind of, we're just talking about the hustle and just juggling everything and whatnot, and you know, something I don't see because it's just what I do. And they asked if I was interested in the speaking realm. I said, well, yeah, I'm actually really interested in it, but for activism. So like one of my big goals is to do a TED Talk. And I speak all the time on panels for activism and whatnot, and for animal rights and environmental stuff, but I'd never thought about like the speaking world kind of in a gig sense. So long and short of that is we kept in touch, and they were like, we're going to do this thing, and there's a conference coming up and we'd love to kind of join forces. Do you want to do it? So myself and Wayne started this thing called Leadership Rhapsody, because we are from parallel universes. Like he's 40 years corporate, like by the book, like checks every Friday, like frustration with teams that aren't performing, whatever. And I'm like, you got to hustle your ass off, and you got to, move things around. You figure it out. There's no guarantees. You got to learn to live within your means. You got to be really smart with money, whatever. You got to say yes. You got to put yourself out there. So basically we do this like combined talk where I tell my story pretty much, and then he tells his, and it's like what business can learn from rock and roll, because in the corporate world, it's kind of, in his opinion, people get too comfortable a lot of the time. It's not that rigid. They don't want to perform, but it's very rigid. You're going to get paid on Friday or the end of the month or whatever. They have, trying to get teams to be more productive together or whatever. So that's stuff that I wouldn't have noticed. But he's like, I see you with these players who've never met. There's like all these differences of opinions, political, musical, whatever, and you're somehow bringing them together. And at the end product, I'm like, oh yeah, it's just what we do, So it was really interesting because I could have just been like, no, I'm busy doing other stuff. But I decided, I always follow my gut. My gut always has told me since I was 4. And I've never not followed my gut instinct, and it's never led me wrong. So that was really fun. And, we only got to do a few of those before the pandemic hit. So hopefully that comes up again, because what it does is it puts me in areas and in rooms and conferences with people who are so different to me. It's hysterical. And I love that, because I really believe that that's where growth is. Being around people who think very, very differently from you. So it's actually been a really beautiful journey on that. And I hope we get back to it soon, but that was fun. So that's Leadership Rhapsody.
Yeah, it looks really cool. I was watching the clips of that, and it looks like it's really good. I don't know. I think there is such a parallel of that group of people and what you do, and goals and stuff. And say, and jobs is hard when you have your peers and you do the same job every day.
Yeah.
So you want to try something different. Someone else might try shooting you down and get jealous because it's competition. And it's
we're complex. We're complex beings, humans. That's for
the fact
sure.
that you think, but you think outside the box, though, and you're always doing a side hustle where you're like, I got an extra hour here,
I didn't know there was a box. There's a box. I should try and get in at one of these days.
I think you got lost. Yeah, that is crazy. So, but you play with a lot of people. Are you doing your own stuff?
I do, and it's a joke between a lot of hired session players, because we're all working on an album that goes on for years, because it's so hard when you're working for other people and to actually sit back and do it. I do have quite a stock of songs, they're just not finished, but what I'm doing with them is putting them on the show and the documentary as well. And like one of my songs, I'm putting together a super band for Sea Shepherd. So I'm doing a song that's going to be for I don't know if anyone's familiar with, they probably know Whale Wars quicker than they'd know Sea Shepherd, but they're an ocean conservation group. So I'm like, well, how can my music serve a purpose as opposed to just putting it out? So I'm putting together a song with Alyssa from Arch Enemy, Alex Skulnick from Testament, Devin Townsend, myself, and there's a few others coming on board now. And that song will be a collaboration. I wrote the music for it, and then I'm handing it over to people to add their sprinkle of spice, and then we'll cut a video for Sea Shepherd. So I think my original music will end up being a lot of that, because I wanted to go back into the movement, because yes, it'd be great to just record and release an album, but again, like the activism thing is so strong in me that it's like, well, if my music can also be tied to a cause and I can hand it over to whatever different groups. So that'll probably start coming out in the next year, where I have a few different songs out for movements, for foundations and stuff with guests, because all my friends are awesome players. So it's like, hey buddy, like, I know I don't want to ask you any favors, but
well, do you do anything else? Did you play, like, you're like, oh, I'm just gonna play bass and write songs, or you're also a singer, play guitar?
I don't play. I'm one of the only bass players who's never picked up a guitar. It's hilarious. I only have them here because this is the studio that I was a bass player from day one. My hands are so stretched out. That's like a resting pause, that if I try to play a chord on guitar, it's pretty funny. Like, I'm terrible on guitar. I do sing backgrounds for bands, and I definitely enjoy writing and hearing melodies and stuff, but pretty much bass. And then like how I would work with writing music with my friends that I write with, like predominantly, I'll hear a lot of what I want them to play and I'll sing it to them on their instruments, or, you know, collaborate on melodies and whatnot. But yeah, I am like to the core a bass player. It's just a bass player.
And it's funny because I don't think I've ever met anybody who just plays bass.
Yeah, no, that's it. I'm like, it's funny because I was joking about this the other day with one of my friends, the way the music industry has gone for a lot of hired guns. And it's, some people do multiple instruments, but often as bass players, we'll get a call because, you know, budgets are changing within the music industry and they want people to like cover 10 things. So you'll get this call for like a big production where you think they'd have big budgets. They're like, hey, so you play bass, you play electric, do you have, you know, a 4, 5, and 6 strings? You play upright? Can you play synth, keys, and sing as well? I'm like, well, technically, yeah, but that's 5 different wages. So I'm always like, I literally play electric bass, and that's what I do. So it's really funny how the industry has gone. And some of my friends who do play all of that, and it's awesome, and they fit into that rotation. But I'm pretty old school to the core. I'm just an electric bass player. Never said I was anything else, and that's what I'll always be.
Nothing wrong. You say you writing songs. I was kind of curious if you was another hidden talent or something where you're like, yeah, I sing. And,
No, all the songs just start with great bass lines, and then we build from there. Which actually, I was talking to so I'm working a little bit with Holly Knight. I don't know if you know who Holly is. She wrote Love is a Battlefield and, you know, Simply the Best and all that. So we were joking because you know, Love is a Battlefield is such a powerful, iconic song. And she was telling me in studio the last day I was over, she writes around bass lines. I was like, see? She just write around bass lines. So yeah, it's fun hearing that from such a legendary songwriter. Like, you wrote around the bass line. I'm like, cool, I'm gonna keep doing that. So
that's really good. I don't know, you may be a singer though. You seem to be good at everything else you seem to be doing, you know.
I can sing, but I'm not a sing. I have so many professional singing friends that I would never insult them by saying I'm a singer. I was a singer in the church choir though. The only time you got me to church was to sing.
To sing. I don't even understand how at 8 years old you could just leave school and go work at a vet. Like, there's no like labor laws, there's no rules.
Well, no, I wasn't working.
Well, even volunteering is like, you can't do anything like that nowadays. You know what I mean?
That's true. You know, it's true. I never thought about that. Yeah, it is, because, you know, they want, and I wasn't doing like veterinary assisting until I was older, obviously, but from 8 to 12, 13, what you're doing is you're just helping with daily chores.
Sure it was a caring environment. I'm just saying, like, you know, especially being in the States.
Oh, yeah. Well,
like,
no, you never.
You can't even get a job without having, you know, 5 different forms of ID. You'll be like 18, you know what I mean?
That's
so to
true.
volunteer
That's
with
very,
insurance,
very
you
true.
can't get near anything.
Yeah, no, it's true. I probably wouldn't be able to do it now. Maybe in Ireland, I don't know. But you're right. It's become so, like, there's just, yeah, it's weird, actually. There's a lot of boundaries for, you know, it's just, like, it was a healthy thing when I look back, like, you know, when you're begging your parents, can I go and help at the rescue shelter, instead of like getting in trouble somewhere.
Well, yeah, I mean, it sounds like a good thing.
Great.
Right.
Yeah. And then
nowadays,
yeah, you're right though. It would be probably a lot harder. There's a lot more red tape and politics involved, right? God damn it. The kid just wants to help with animals.
I know, what you got in under the thing, and you learned so many life skills that set you up that you probably learned as much as anyone would learn in college, you know?
I think so.
From animals,
college of the school of hard knocks. Is that what they say?
And compassion and empathy.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Like, I mean, that was just the minute I went, I'll never forget the day I went out there. I was like, that's it. I'm coming back here tomorrow. If they'll have me or not, I'm coming back. And like, I mean, it wasn't glamorous. You're literally cleaning up after, like, we had minimum of 40 dogs at a time. We had a paddock that had like sheep, goats, chickens, rescues of whatever, an aviary of sick birds. Like, it was hard work. And my dad would drop me out there and you would literally be like cleaning, you know, caring and feeding ill animals, like cleaning. Now
it sounds like child labor.
It's like, it was actually, in hindsight, it was child labor, no, but I was so happy. I was so happy because I was surrounded by animals, and that was like, okay, these are my people. That is
one step away from cleaning chimneys because you're little and you can fit in it. That is.
There you go. We've just discovered that I was actually in child labor for 10 years.
Headlines. That is funny. But yeah. So, well, and on an animal note, so you obviously love animals. Do you have pets because you tour? Can you have pets? No.
No, I don't, because of that lifestyle. I definitely have done a lot of like adoptions and fosters over the years, but I choose to not have animals because I can't be a proper pet mom. I will eventually, when I pick one solid place to be, like if I have more solid base in the next few years, I'll probably end up with like random things. I want like a pig and a turkey and something completely like God knows what I'll end up. But I wouldn't do it to the animal because I travel so much.
And that shows that you really do love animals. I agree. There's a lot of animals that I don't like seeing or would take because I love the animal, but they don't belong. I don't believe animals belong in certain small areas. They need to be out. I'm not going to go think. I believe in a lot of those things. To me, a lot of zoos feel like animal prisons, and aquariums just feel like
I hate them.
It's soul crushing to see animals just trapped. It's not a performance. It's just sad.
Exactly.
I didn't get it when I was little until you look at it when you get older. And you're like, oh, this is awful.
Yeah, it's so true. And like for me, it's like having a child. It's a big decision. Like granted, having cats, for instance, is easier if you're gone for like 2 or 3 days, or if you're gone on tour and someone can come check, because cats are so much more independent. But like
and they're also
dogs,
jerks.
I love it. That's why I love cats.
I love my cat. Allergic to it. My cat sits to the lap, will walk up, look at me, and just go, that's it, off the counter, and just walk away for no reason.
There's such characters. Such characters. It's amazing. But yeah, it's so true. Like with dogs, I would never have one until I knew I am either going to be off the road enough, or my partner or friends or whoever live nearby that can check on it. But to me it's the same as having a child. It's like no joke. It's a living being that needs your care and attention. So I actually don't have pets for that reason, but I work for animals endlessly, and then I kind of vicariously have pets through my friends. So I go visit like my friends' dogs and I'm like, Auntie Tanya's here.
But it is funny, so you having that, but you're not having pets, so yeah, the poor irony of that.
I know, but it's better for them.
No, it is. Anything coming up? Anything else you want to promote? Well, all your links we've talked about. There's so much you've done.
I mean, exactly. Like the best place really to follow me is I'm only really active on Instagram, for business on LinkedIn, but for the socials, I try to like hone it down to one because I don't like being on my phone all day long. So many. I just feel like it's better to have an authentic, engaged audience in one place and be like spreading yourself thin. So yeah, anything that's coming up will be there. I mean, at the moment, the biggest push is Highway to Health and this new documentary I'm working on, which is going to be really interesting, but I can't really talk about it yet. So that's no use pushing until I'm on Instagram. But music wise, some really interesting recording sessions coming up that I will post about soon.
Okay.
And other than that, I'm like, it's so many things that I'm like, I can't think. But yeah, all my links that you have are there. I have my own website. It's just TanyaO'Callaghan.com. I have Leadership Rhapsody, Highway to Health Show.com. And my Instagram is just, what is it? At Tanya O'Callaghan _official. So any and all shenanigans that are happening will be there.
And anything that I see at yours, I'll probably repost it too. It goes on to keep promoting you, and hopefully you'll come back again at a later date and talk some more. I'm looking forward to seeing these shows come out though, especially the Highway to Health. Looks so awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna be really fun.
It looks awesome. I want to thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It was a very nice chat. Thanks for talking about all the things.